Intermittent fasting. You have seen it absolutely everywhere, right? From celebrity posts to health headlines. But after years and years of debate, is the science finally settled? Well, one massive study is claiming the case is officially closed. So today, we're going to put that claim on trial.
It really all kicks off with this, a hashtag that kind of blew up in science circles, hashtag case closed. This was someone's reaction to a huge new review on intermittent fasting, and it was published by Cochrane, one of the most trusted names out there for medical evidence. So the question is, did they really just drop the final gavel on this entire debate?
So yeah, that's our big question for today. We're going to put this whole idea on trial. We'll look at the evidence, we'll hear from the experts, and we're going to see if this case is really as closed as it seems. Okay, so before we dive into this new evidence, we really need to understand the backstory here. This is not the first time this debate has seen the inside of let's call it a scientific courtroom. This latest study is just one more chapter in a much, much longer story. Let's take a look at the case history. If you look back at some of the biggest studies from top-tier medical journals, you start to see a really clear pattern emerge. Back in 2020, a major study found that fasting wasn't any better than just a normal eating schedule. Then, in 2022, another one found it was no more beneficial than just restricting calories. And we saw it again in 2023. Yep, it worked for weight loss, but not any better than good old-fashioned calorie restriction. The key thing here is the comparison, right? Time and time again, the special timing of fasting doesn't seem to beat the simple act of just eating less food overall. So the evidence has been pointing in this direction for a while now. And that brings us to the main event, the big piece of evidence that sparked that whole case closed comment. We are talking about a massive Cochrane review. Now, you can think of these reviews as kind of like the Supreme Court of medical evidence. Researchers take all the best existing studies and analyze them together to try and find a definitive answer. And to really get a sense of how powerful this review is, just look at the sheer number. They didn't just run one new experiment here. No, they combined the results from 22 of the best studies already out there. We're talking randomized controlled trials. That is a huge amount of data to work with. And the scope was global. I mean, we're talking about almost 2,000 people from studies done all over the world. This wasn't some small, isolated experiment. This kind of global scale gives the findings a much, much stronger foundation. It makes them pretty hard to just brush aside. So after all that, what was the final verdict from this massive review? Well, the conclusions were crystal clear. When it came to weight loss, intermittent fasting showed little to no difference compared to just standard dietary advice. And here's the real kicker. It showed little to no benefit compared to doing, well, nothing at all. With findings that stark, you can definitely see why someone would be quick to declare the case closed. But hold on a second. Just when it seems like the verdict is in, the scientific community itself starts its own cross-examination. Because in science, one study, even a really big one, is almost never the final word. Let's hear what the experts had to say. First up, we hear from Dr. Baptiste Laurent, and he kind of sees this as a big reality check. He points out that what's popular and what's actually been proven can be two totally different things. He's basically suggesting the hype around intermittent fasting has gotten way ahead of the actual data. Professor Keith Frayne from Oxford, he agrees. He calls the review authoritative and really hammers home the core principle. If you want to lose weight, you have to reduce your calorie intake. The specific method you use, he argues, just doesn't matter as much as that fundamental rule. There are no magic bullets here. But then we hear a really strong counterargument. Dr. Adam Collins from the University of Surrey, he pushes back, and he pushes back hard. He argues that while this one review is interesting, it shouldn't just erase the existing consensus that for a lot of people, intermittent fasting is an effective tool. He sees it as just one valid strategy among many, with other potential benefits that are still being researched. So here it is, the heart of the debate, laid out side by side. On one hand, you've got this massive review concluding that fasting offers no special advantage. But on the other hand, you have experts arguing that it's still a perfectly good tool in the toolbox, one that works really well for some people to help them cut calories. And you know what? Both of those things can be true at the same time. So where does all this leave us? Well, it leads us to the real takeaway. Because this whole thing isn't just about which diet you should choose. It's about something much bigger. How we understand the science that makes it into the headlines. If there is one simple, clear message to pull from this entire debate, it's this. Intermittent fasting can work.
but it seems to work for a pretty simple reason. It helps people eat fewer calories. The magic isn't in the clock, it's in the calories.
And this brings us to probably the most important idea of all, scientific consensus. You see, the truth is, science doesn't really work like a courtroom drama with a single dramatic final verdict. It's a lot more like a long, ongoing conversation, where new evidence is constantly being presented, challenging and refining what we thought we knew. One study, no matter how big it is, isn't the final verdict. It's just one more piece of evidence for the community to consider.
So I'll leave you with this question to think about. The next time you see a headline declaring a case closed on some big health topic, are you going to accept that verdict at face value? Or are you going to look a little deeper at the evidence, at the debate, and at all the nuance? Because understanding that process, well, that's the real key to making sense of it all.